Alright, the next map in the tournament is going to be Tag Craftiest Maximus, which we have seen around a couple of times before. The contestants are Blackheart in the top left, going Seraphim, and Robogear on the bottom right as Cybrin. So you want to talk a little bit about the map and maybe a build order or two?
Oh god, build order. Let's not talk about the build order, because I happen not to have any. But this map is one of the most difficult ladder maps I know, because, well, it has a strong navy, air, and land relevance, and it's not very straightforward to play. Plus, basically it's a power stall map, so you can do whatever you want. You're almost guaranteed to stall power. Doesn't matter how many pigeons you build. And in the unlikely event that you don't power stall, you're most certainly going to build power stall. So it's very difficult to play. I see Robogear is going for a lab. Labs can be very devastating on this map because they can kill multiple engineers, and you can see how the expansions are all relatively far away from the core, but as soon as you leave the core, the density of the expansion is actually quite high, right? So
Yes.
one engineer can expand across an expansion route and build like 7 or so mass extractors or 4 mass extractors, just a single engineer. And if that light assault pod can kill 2 engineers or so, that's extremely devastating.
And it's a lot of travel time to make up.
Right, I've played games against Methy before on this map, and Methy is like the master of lab micro pretty much, and he's won games with just a lab. So it's of course very risky, but
I can say that I'm probably coming from the opposite side of the spectrum than you are, and I have experienced neither of the problems that you suggest. Power stall, yeah, everybody power stalls, but I've never had a build power discrepancy. Like I've always have enough build power, it seems like, but that might be because I find myself having less tanks than the other guy does. So that might have something to do with it. What I do know is that whoever designed Tag Craftiest Maximus either deserves an award for the best matches played on a ladder map because of the way that it's oriented, or they deserve to be shanked in the kidney depending on your perspective and how difficult the map is to play. You've got mesas around the north and south, so you've got to get transports out to capture those. You've got mexes in the water, so you need navy. In addition to that, your entire home base is susceptible to frigates. They can kill your hydro and all 4 mass extractors from the water. And then you've got all of these mass extractors in the expansions to keep track of, so you have to have land. And it's just one calamity after another if you're not able to secure all of it. I have seen people win not playing any navy. However, if you do not win very early with your land, you will lose later because navy will wreck your face. So it's hard. It is hard to play Tag Craftiest Maximus. We got a first bomber out. Blackheart is, well, not first bomber literally, but the first bomber out for Blackheart. Already halfway across the map, and a bomber from Robogear to match. Probably see interceptor from both these guys in just a memento, and they'll try to pick that up. Poor little scout getting picked on by a bomber. And then we've got 3 land factories planned for Robogear in the home base, and a single solitary land factory for Blackheart, who is now spamming power like mad and building 2 naval factories on the left side edge. So radically different build orders from these players.
2 observations. First, Blackheart's ACU name is just something you need to cherish. Come on, it's so good.
I have no build order. That is readily apparent.
And something I observe in these Blackheart edit games, everybody goes second air bomber first. We haven't seen second air inti first yet, I think. And of course, like, it kind of makes sense that the bomber is better. That's why you would want it. But at the same time, your enemy might want it. So you might have extra incentive to go for inti first and get the bomber later, right? But everybody's choosing to go for an early bomber. We've seen some air first bomber first too. So yeah, I think that's very different from current ladder meta, where people go for inti first and only make bombers when they have air control because they are less efficient.
I find it, I think, yeah, the bomber has radar, doesn't it? Yeah, because it doesn't have radar in the new patches. So the bomber is also able to scout for itself in this. There's a lot of differences to be had. So single engineer building naval factories on the left is going to take a little while to get that build power in place, and on the right, Robogear is actually dropping his first land factory as well. And while generally speaking it's not that great of an idea to spam T1 subs because of the whole discussion about frigates having so much HP and subs taking so long to rack up damage, yada yada yada, when you have this many mass extractors in the water, you definitely want T1 subs, because they're going to be able to kill the mexes and do effective raiding, so you're going to need them later on, which means that you have to build T1 subs to counter your opponent's T1 subs. Frigates are still valuable, but not quite as much in the early game on this map. Neither player appears to be going for the mesas, which is a bit odd.
The place at the bottom of the map where Robogear's engineer is a good spot for a torpedo tower because of the presence of submarines Brink has mentioned. The hydro in the bottom is something you build relatively late usually because of how long it takes to get there and because of how long it takes to build it. And even if this gets killed by enemy navy later, it's sort of an early warning system against the navy, which has to travel a long way around the torpedo tower. So this spot for torpedo tower with 3 mixes is very good. I highly recommend it.
Blackheart is now building a transport, and I think it's worth noting that there is a 75 mass reclaim rock on each one of the islands. So it's actually good to drop it not just for the mexes, but you can also pay for the engineer that you sent over there with the rock that you reclaim. So it works out pretty well in your favor if you drop those early. Looks like a few more Mantis for Robogear than Blackheart has tanks to his name. I'm going to go ahead and queue over. We'll get an eco count and a tank count. Robogear sitting on 16 Mantis, while Blackheart is at a whopping 18 THAMs. So I was totally wrong about that. Roughly even on their numberings. Blackheart at 59 mass per tick with 620 reclaim. Robogear at 53 with 200 in reclaim. So Blackheart is actually ahead in both mass counts.
Yeah, I think what happened here is like not about the mass, but about the power and the tank count. I think what happened here is Blackheart was a bit more on the not power stalling but build power stalling side of things, and Robogear was on the I have a lot of build power but not enough power side of things, and it's very difficult to balance these two dimensions out. And well, that's why Robogear had an initial production lead, and Blackheart had a few units early on, since Robogear suicided some Mantis into Blackheart's ACU. The initial advantage of Robogear didn't work out quite so well, and the unit count is now even, but Blackheart had this power earlier, so he could scale a bit better than Robogear, who had to pause some stuff in order to not stall power.
I did not realize T1 artillery can actually attack uphill and hit these plateaus. So it's very difficult to hold those mass extractors. Both players actually killing each other's mexes on the plateaus with T1 artillery at the same time.
Some people like to make radar and anti-air and point defense there, but typically because of the hardy, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you do manage to hold this place, I believe the Tito Ari you can build from there can actually reach into the base, at least a part of the base, if I'm not mistaken.
Robogear was able to pick up a small amount of eco and map control over here, but he has since lost all of his Mantis, so there's now a pretty good group of THAMs on that side, but his ACU will be able to take care of that. Something a little interesting is that both players have moved to T2 at almost exactly the same time. Looks like T2 engineers out for both players, which are going to build a power generator and attack defense in Blackheart's case, while he still builds more T2 engineers. And then in Robogear's base, we have not got a Q yet, but I would imagine it's probably going to be a T2 power and a attack defense. Since this is a relatively small map as far as the center island is concerned, you will need TMD because forward TMLs can be utterly devastating, and you don't want to have that thing happening to your base.
I do remember a certain text game with some nice TML action on the HQ.
Yes. Robogear picked the wrong side of the mountain to put his ACU on. He went over here to build these mass extractors, and in the meantime, a dozen tanks bypassed his ACU completely and are now going to raid his base. So I think he probably should have gone to the north with that, but maybe he had other plans. We may never know.
I guess it may be a good idea to keep the ACU in between the two mountains, so that it can flexibly react to anything. Of course, you're going to need radar or a land scout. For Cybern, this would probably be radar, since land scouts don't have the highest reach for Cybern. And you can take the 3 mexes at the bottom with engineers.
There's the frigate I was talking about that can reach the stuff on the mainland. Just about took out a mechs there.
I like the cliff build of the torpedo tower at the bottom of Robogear's base against the submarine's Blackheart hat.
Looks like 3 additional naval factories coming online for Robogear in the north. That's going to give him a slight build power advantage over Blackheart. Blackheart still has a fair bit of eco, but look at this frigate. It was able to take out 3 mass extractors and do half health damage to the Hydro, excuse me, before it was eliminated by a couple of T1 subs. So if another frigate were able to get in there, it could probably kill the rest. Meanwhile, on the south, all 4 mass extractors and the Hydro are going to die to this frigate. Beautiful raiding from Robogear.
A Blackheart far ahead in eco though, it seems.
Probably mostly due to the north side mesas and securing over half of the waterborne mass extractors. Part of that also coming into play with the engineer that was able to capture all of the mass points on the south side. Some of them I think he was literally capturing because those are green colored Cybern mexes, or sorry, gray colored Cybern mexes, and then one of them he was able to straight up build. So he's doing a better job overall of just being everywhere and securing all the mass extractors.
A very decentralized map and quite APM intense. I'd say if you have less than 80 APM on this map, it's going to be quite difficult to just rebuild and raid things in time and intercept enemy raid, while also paying attention to your eco.
Pardon me while I go cry over my 45 APM.
Sorry.
I haven't actually measured it in a long time, so I don't know what it is, and I very rarely try hard. I could probably get it up higher than that. Looks like a good push for some Mantis through the center. There's 2 Ilshivas waiting on the other side with radar backup, and 1 Ilshiva in the middle. So I don't know that this is actually going to break through to be worth anything. No, it is not. But it was able to kill the 2 mass extractors in the middle, and we now have a clump of rhinos following up from the rear. So Robogear is stepping up his T2 production. He's got two T2 support factories as well as his HQ, which is heavily assisted running. He's actually shut down his other T1 land factories except for the ones that are building engineers and one that is spamming nothing but Medusas. Of course, Medusa is able to stun T2 units, so they're useful to have on the battlefield even far into the mid-game. You never really want to stop building T1 artillery completely, of course, but Medusas are more useful than some because of that stun effect.
Most players argue that a 1-to-1 ratio between Rhinos and Medusas is the best and most mass efficient composition for Cybern in the T2 stage. I don't play Cybern a lot, so I don't know, but I can see why it would work, because Rhinos are relatively slow and Medusa delivers the stun. So it seems like a good mix.
Right now we're seeing the strength of the Ilshivas in the center, where the Ilshis were able to outrange and destroy 1 Rhino without taking a single shot in return fire. Of course, now we've got mobile stealth, a mobile missile launcher, flak, and a couple more tanks moving in for Robogear. He's getting his unit mix in place in a good kind of way, but the damage was done there. His overall unit count is reduced. Killing off the Ilshiva in the top right is also going to be helpful. He's going to be able to secure that expansion once again. I'm trying to figure out why the chat says that I just finished T2, but whatever.
Well, same here. I think it's because we were observing Blackheart earlier, and he just finished his T2 ACU upgrade. Since we were in his POV, the game thinks it's still us.
That makes sense.
I wonder if we're going to gain or lose rating because we are in the POV of players as the live replay happens. I think this was a bug for a while.
Well, let's hope so, because I could definitely use some ranking. Blackheart is getting a tack launcher up, which is going to be able to reach most of Robogear's base. However, Robo does already have TMD in place. I'm curious as to whether or not Blackheart has that scouted. He does not, but he now has an interceptor in and will know that it's there. Really probably should have scouted before he built the tack launcher, but...
Well, I think it's usually not such a great hindrance. You can always make MML as well to overwhelm the TMD, or more straightforward, you can make bombers to take it out.
We've got 53 mass per tick for Robogear and 117 for Blackheart, along with having triple the reclaim. So Blackheart has the massive economy advantage here, and it is going to be very difficult for Robogear to make this up.
Commander under attack.
Blackheart can probably transition into T3 now, but then again there's probably little reason for him to do it, as his T2 is working out quite well. He can probably just keep making T2 and kill his opponent with that.
He's actually got a group of hover tanks on the south side, oddly enough. I don't know why exactly you would build hover tanks, since you've already got naval superiority and you're winning land superiority, and Ilshivas are objectively better than Yenzines in practically every way. But he does have hover tanks, so we'll wait and see what he does with them.
I think he wants to deal with the torpedo launcher. Hover tanks can get attacked with that, but maybe can.
That is a fair point, actually. There's a
Plus,
Yenzine
hover
on the
tanks-
south side that just killed 2 mass extractors.
Yeah. Plus hover tanks can actually be used on land, right? Like if you build frigates, you're going to be forced to use them on the water. But if you need extra firepower on the land, the hover tank gives you the flexibility you need. So I was a bit more surprised that Robogear actually went for rhinos and didn't make Wagners, because Wagners can probably perform some sneaky maneuvers on this map and like land on the beaches and attack the base from an angle that is not expected.
Yeah, he could go into the water next to his naval factory, loop around the outside edge, and then come out practically inside Blackheart's base. It's also high. Say what?
Like, okay, in between the Rhino and the Wagner, the difference in performance is not huge. I'd say most of the time you can treat them as equivalents. Perhaps the Rhino being slightly better overall, and the Wagner being a bit better in like special case scenarios such as short travel time and water context, right? So in a map that has water and in a map of this size, I'd probably go for Wagners instead of Rhinos in general.
Wagners are also better for killing ACUs because you don't have as much mass. The Wagners have more DPS per unit than the Rhinos do, and cost slightly less mass, I think, if I'm not totally mistaken. And therefore the overcharges don't hurt you as much, and they're dealing more overall damage, so each unit that gets overcharged doesn't decrease your DPS as much as with the Rhinos. But that is kind of a fringe case, since you're very rarely ever going in with a swarm of T2 units with the express purpose of killing an ACU unless you basically won the game anyway. Lots of T1 subs out for Blackheart. I think he is actually exclusively building T1 subs from his naval factories, and then depending on the hover tanks to deal with any other threats that may come about. T1 bombers around the back of Robogear's base trying to deal with the Yenzines and artillery that's in the water, but look at the gaping hole in the back of his base now, because he's got a hover arty problem in the rear. That is a devastating blow.
Making very good use of the Seraphim faction.
Yeah.
I've been wondering why you would go Seraphim in this map, but hey, pretty cool.
You're being sarcastic, right?
No, actually I'm not. Like, this looks like a pillar map to me. Mostly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Zooies around the back end apparently super effective. We do have a push up in the middle, but thanks to Ilshiva's rolling off the factory line, I think there's going to be enough there to deny. At first, it looked like this might be able to punch through, and it may still be able to kill maybe one of the P-Gens, maybe two of the T2 P-Gens, but overall, I think Blackheart's lead is so significant that there is no stopping it. He's also about to roll the first T3 tank off the factory line, and that is pretty much going to clinch the victory.
Yeah, I think the transition into T3 was well timed.
Looking at these Seraphim shields, something to remember. Seraphim shields burn half the power of a T2 power generator. There's the Control K, GG thrown out. The Seraphim shield burns 250 out of 500, and of course once you get the reduction in power burn because of the adjacency with the power generators, it's not quite so bad. But that is kind of a disadvantage to Seraphim because the other factions can effectively shield their power generators without biting into their power supply too much. Like, you can just build one random Cybern shield over one Cybern T2 power generator and it doesn't make that much of a difference. But with Seraphim, you basically have to build two T2 power generators to bring your first shield online and be power effective.
The build time and the max costs are also a factor. Like, Seraphim shields are just very expensive overall. And like, I'd rather have a shield that I can construct quickly and it shields stuff immediately than having a strong shield which takes a long time to build. Like, especially when your ACU is under attack and you want to make a quick T2 shield, then Seraphim is something you wanna plan out far ahead, and you cannot build reactively as easily.
Someone in chat asking for a T2 mex count. Blackheart had an even dozen mexes T2, and it looks like Robogear, if he had any, died. So that is your count. That is gonna wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.